apprentice. Go find someone winning and doing that thing and get as much info from them as possible. The universe doesn't wait. If you don't act, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you forget or don't do anything, then someone else is going to run with it. I think a lot of people learn by doing. School, just to be clear, most of the time is mostly theory. And theory always works on paper, but in the real world, does not work.
Welcome to Recast and Rise, the podcast for performers and creatives ready to explore what's next. You'll hear inspiring stories of artists who reinvented themselves and found new careers after the stage. Let's recast and rise. Hello, Cliff. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Eve. Thanks for having me. Excited.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, Cliff, you are an author, you're a business owner, and more. You're a musician, and you're going to tell us all about that. And we're going to talk about career today. But first, tell us about what you were doing as a performer and artist.
Yeah, I mean, I've grew up in music my entire life. So growing up on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., Maryland, I studied music, piano since I was a kid, since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And did all the choirs in school and church. And so, yeah, my life has been surrounded by music. My family is very musical, a lot of great singers in my family. And so it just allowed me to basically have this kind of umbrella or creative lens over my entire life. So I always tell people I feel that we're created by a creator to create. So I spend most of my time now encouraging creatives and non-creatives. We are all creative. Because if you see the world as creative, then you will find the creativity in everything. I always tell people when I was a kid and I watched the movie Mary Poppins, when Julie Andrews bursts into this room, she's like, if you find the fun, then snap, the job is a game. If you think of life as a game and you're aiming to win and taking that curiosity into it, then creativity is everywhere. But once you say, oh, I'm not creative, or that's not for me, or I'm not creative because I don't draw or I don't paint or I don't sculpt, then you don't see the creativity I see. Even outside of music, I see all these great Instagram and TikTok videos of people who are like, this is how you strip paint and you renew silver, or this is how you build a desk, like all these different things that I never thought were that interesting. People, how they take food on the show Chopped, and they're like, take all these ingredients that don't seem like they work together, but we make it work. Or I used to watch the fashion show Project Runway. And every time people would be like, okay, I need to make this and this not working. And the guy would run in there. He was like, make it work. Make it work. That's life.
Yeah.
You got to make it work. You got to make lemonade out of everything. And so I feel that music is just a great underpinning for me because the improvisation, thinking on your feet, working with different band members and how you are communicating together. Like music is crazy. Like, how does that work? How do you have everybody playing something that somehow goes together, even though it doesn't always work? Like sometimes you have people like, okay, this is not gelling, it's not working together. But it's like, how do we all play? Like, how do you have 5, 10, 20 saxophones or a full orchestra and they can play together? That's the interesting, intricate part of music as the through line, that it can work, and you can build a team of people who can make that dream work, even if it's seemingly impossible, because you have all these bright minds working together. Everything has kind of a vibration. So that's what I try to have people focus on, is that you kind of have to look at it that way, because then you'll see it. It's like you demystify the universe. It's not this thing that only certain people can do it. I don't want people to be like, only certain people can create. No. We all come in the world creative. It is now a proven fact. If you watch this TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson, he explains the education system in the Western world, in America and Europe, that it pushes the creativity out of people because they wanted people to be more controlled and to be able to go into the workforce. So they didn't build a lot of those soft or creative skills. They focused on hard skills, and we want to be more balanced, more integrated. So it's exciting as I work with kids growing up. I really get to go in there and say, no, you all want to sing, you all want to dance. And they're like, yeah, we want to do it. I'm like, yeah, keep that, carry that forward into life, because if you want to stay young, it's not Botox, it's laughter and having fun and playing.
Yes, totally. And this is interesting because creativity, to your point, it's often associated to art, so performing, moving your body, singing, music, all that stuff. But you can also, you and I probably, we know many people that are in the corporate world and they have more traditional jobs and they're still very much creative. So I love your take on that. That is so
Yeah,
great.
yeah, because you want to everything in corporate world, all businesses, because I studied business and have my MBA from Pepperdine, but even before that, all businesses are created to solve a problem, a felt need, a solution. Solutions by design are creativity. You have to be creative in how you solve because you're creating something that didn't exist before. AI didn't exist before. The internet didn't exist before. And
Mhm.
if you're able to see those shifts and changes and go with that current and put some crazy goal out there that you think is impossible, then you'd be surprised where you can get to because you've now put that out into the universe and then it'll start sending you information and people that'll help you get there. But if you don't see the corporate world as a place for your creativity. Actually, cream rises to the top and creativity rises to the top. So the most creative people end up getting higher in the corporate world because those are the people that you can throw crazy things to and they're going to figure it out. Because
Yeah.
everything is figure outable at some point if you really try to figure it out. It's not going to be the first time. You know, you look at Thomas Edison took 10,000 experiments to make the light bulb. I
Yes.
think that what you're going to need is someone who's like, I'm not going to quit after 5 or 10 or 100 because
Mhm.
it may take you a lot of tries to figure it out. I tell people like in computers, you have Intel. They made these chips and they're like Intel is inside of all of the Dell computers and Hewlett Packard. But before they made other chips, they had to shut that entire part of the business down and say, we don't make any other chips except these small chips. And people are like, you're crazy. You're going to lose so much money. But they became the dominant leader because they were like, we're going to go all in on this one
Yes.
little thing. And so sometimes that's how businesses become really big solutions where they decide. Instagram got sold for $1 billion to Facebook. It was supposed to be something else. It was like a GPS type of thing. And the only thing in the app that people cared about is I took a photo of my food here. That's the one aspect they kept out of
Yeah.
all the other things. And it worked. And it became huge. So, you know, TikTok was started for music and now it does all kinds of things. So things evolve.
Mhm.
Spotify evolves. And so I just think you can do whatever you do and do it to the best of your ability today, but you want to get more education, lifelong learning because you become obsolete over time. Like the world is changing. So I tell people all the time, like, don't spend your time fighting against the technology or AI. Like that's just like, it's too big. You have to
Mhm.
see like, how do I use it? But I tell people it's a place for it, but it doesn't have to fully replace anything, you know, because like the mediums change, but the ideas of people wanting content have been since the cavemen. You know, we will always want entertainment for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Totally. And Cliff, so music is definitely part of your daily life.
Hmm.
What else do you do? So, as far as a career conversation go, transitioning, what else do you do outside of your art, traditional
Oh,
art? What else do you do? Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So I mean, art is already like one large umbrella, but I always tell people I have two parallel tracks. So you see train tracks and you see, okay, they're going
Mhm.
this way, right? But they're completely separate, but still they kind of work together. So in the corporate world, I'm vice president of digital and operations for a digital marketing firm in the beauty sector. So I work with a lot of great brands. You're wearing a lot of great stuff today, your lipstick and your makeup and your blush and your hair care and your skincare. All those brands, hundreds and hundreds of brands I've worked with to be able to launch their products into communities and networks and people who can try before you buy because ultimately buyers want to be informed. They don't want to get stuff and be like, does this work for me? No, I want to see the social proof. I want to see 100 people. She looks like me. She sounds like me. This looks like my avatar. I think this will work for me. It doesn't mean it always works for you, but it gives you more information than, you know, no reviews. And so it's been exciting because even though it doesn't have anything to do with music, it has a lot to do with creativity and a lot with working with people and a lot of creating opportunities. I mean, I get to give so many products away to so many people who get to learn about new brands and educate themselves, and they're fanatical. And the thing is, pivot it into digital marketing and e-commerce because I read this article and it talked about during one of the recessions we had called the lipstick effect. And basically, it was like the secret buying habits of women. They will spend their last money on something that makes them feel good. And I was like, that's interesting because I had originally been mentored in music by Akon, who brought out Lady Gaga and a bunch of other people. And he said, if you make music for women, you'll have a career the rest of your life. Go learn what women want. And so I was like, I want to know that. I want to know what women are buying and why they do that. And sometimes they would say, it's pink. That's all that matters. That's all we need. And I was like, that's crazy. And you think that guys are not like that, but it is not true. There's an amazing business person, Grant Cardone, who does a lot of public speaking and motivation. And he was like, as a billionaire and millionaire, he went into a store and a lady was selling him this leather jacket and it was really expensive. And he was like, this is a great jacket, but it's really expensive. Who needs this jacket? She was like, nobody needs a leather jacket. They want a leather jacket. And he was like, I'll take two. So it's like, so we have our own secret habits of how we buy too.
Yes.
But once you understand how people buy, how they consume, you have
Mhm.
people with different communication styles and learning styles. The whole point of being an entertainer or creative or whatever, a business, is you have to be able to let people come to you in the way that they want. And so the more offerings you can do that
Mm.
tap those things, the sensuality of it, their five senses, you'll have a captive audience that you can build a network and a community and a foundation on. So it seems like on paper, you would be like, these are totally opposite, different industries, different things. But I see a through line that it's like, oh no, actually learning about people, learning what they want, giving them in one way beauty is the same as giving them music because
Mhm.
those people, they do both. People who love beauty, they love music. People who love music, they love beauty or whatever. It's like people who love movies, love books. So it's like as you switch through these mediums, you're just tapping into different parts of them at different times. And by having things that are on demand in terms of content, people can go and download that and look at it when they want to. Because it's a real me-centric world. So people are always tuned to one radio station, WIIFM, in it for me. That's what you're tapping into, no matter
Yes.
what business or career you
Yeah.
do.
Yes, yes. And how does your day actually look like being both, right? Because you still play music, but then you have a very corporate role. What does your day look like?
Yeah, I mean, I live and die by my calendar, so I always check it every day. I'm very meticulous at making sure I put everything in there. I always tell people if I don't put it in the calendar, it doesn't happen. So I have to know and try to be proactive instead of reactive. But I leave space because you can't plan for everything. There's no crystal ball. But yeah, I have a lot of calls, a lot of meetings, a lot of preparation, and I will say it's not for the faint of heart. Like I work a lot of hours and I work round the clock, but I'm not always doing the same thing. So for me, I like it because it keeps me interesting. I'm like probably one of the few people where you'll rarely, if ever, hear me say I'm bored, right? There's no real downtime because if I don't have anything to do, I'll be thinking about something or listening to something or reading something or watching something. And they're all beneficial and valuable because they're a space. But I think it's having autonomy, which I really love, allows me to do those switches, but then also being able to connect them more together, right? So, like, if I'm working on an album and then working on my radio show or a podcast, like, I follow the breadcrumbs to see the through line that maybe not everybody sees, but I think, like, the universe is everything, right? So, like, in a perfect world, all the things are connected, right? Just because you don't see that connection doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And sometimes you just feel it and you can't even quantify what it is. So I really am like more on the metaphysical side when it comes to like, if you believe it all works together, like your body's a whole system, right? So if I stub my toe, I feel it everywhere, right? Well, the world is the same thing. If I feel like everything is somehow connected, I don't have to understand or know every connection, but with that belief, I
Mhm.
can always go into the next thing. But also, I say yes to things that are scary and that are difficult and that I don't know how to do in the beginning. So I always tell people like the reason why I've made so many pivots is because when someone gives me an opportunity, I'll say, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then people are like, do you know how to do it? Absolutely not. I don't know. I mean, how would I know before I've done the thing what it's going to
Yeah.
be? But I have to say it because I'm like, well, no one else wants to take this or nobody's here or, there's,
Yeah.
sometimes people are like, I'm looking for Mr. Right. Sometimes you're Mr. Right. Sometimes you're Mr. Right now. Sometimes you're Mr. Right there. Like sometimes just showing up is all, there was nobody else. So I think that is the really exciting thing for people is that you don't have to be great to start. but you do have to start to eventually become great. And most of the time, you're going to suck in the beginning. And most of the time, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, that's what experiments are.
Yes, and it within the last minute of you speaking just now, you recapped exactly like a lot of things that we talk about on this podcast, which you probably know is you're a beginner at some point at anything, and you have to try things. You have to try, experiment, and if you don't like it, you don't like it, then pivot to try something else. And for performers, artists like you can do it while you're doing your art. Prepare yourself. Go explore. Even if you are on stage or performing, there are still plenty of hours in a day to go explore, fail, go fail while you can, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's divergent thinking. Like you look at like there was a person trying to solve a math problem and like he's in the bath and then the eureka moment, like he sees the water displacement, he's like, oh, that's the geometry of it. So it's like as you think seemingly you're doing something completely unrelated, your mind in the background is still trying to figure things out. And sometimes by moving on, like you're like, okay, I'm stuck and there's nothing else I can do. By moving on to something else, you might be surprised and get that aha moment and be like, oh, I can apply this back in this other thing that I was stuck on because now my mind kept the momentum. That's why I tell people I do a lot of walk and talks when I'm working because I get my best ideas as my blood is flowing and pumping. So when I'm walking around or pacing around, my mind thinks differently. In the same way, when I became sober from alcohol and started doing more exercise and cleaning up my diet, my thoughts became clearer. But I didn't realize there was a correlation between the two until I did all that work. Then I was like, you could get way more done if you were healthier. I started telling people that. I was like, you want to hustle. If you hustle healthier, you'll get exponentially more done. But again, you don't know how heavy you are until you start to lose the weight.
Mm.
So there's no way to know until you do the work. Then you go back and tell people about it.
Yes, yes. Well, I can only imagine you pacing around and writing your ideas
Always,
as you go.
always. I always have my notepad or talking into my phone because it's true.
Yes, yes.
As a musician, I found so many demos on my phone that I had forgotten about, and then I started like using AI and plugging them in, and I was like, oh, these songs are great. I forgot all about them. But that's why I document everything onto hard drives and other stuff because it's like if you don't get it, it's like there and then gone, like so quick.
Yes.
And I just saw an amazing thing because the Michael Jackson movie just came out. I saw this note where he called all the producers into the studio, and he was like, I have this idea. And they were like, you want to work on it right now? He was like, yes, because if I don't do it now, the universe is going to send this to Prince. And it's
Yes.
true. It's like it will pass on if you don't document it right then and you forget someone else. That's why you'll be watching it and you're like, I had that idea. I was going to do that. It's like the universe doesn't wait. If you don't act 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and you forget or don't do anything, then someone else is going to run with it.
Yes, take actions. Yes, I love this. So to go back to the more practical career change, I love that you were talking about marketing because, again, it is so creative and so many artists are great at that, right? What would you recommend to someone who is interested in exploring marketing? Of course, it could go back to school, all of that, but also I like to think there are other ways to at least try it. What would you recommend? Quick pause. If you are a performer wondering what's next, let's connect. Book a call with me or send me a message and visit my website where you can find more tips and tricks to navigate your career change. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more inspiring stories and career tools. Now back to our chat.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that school is great. I think it's a way, not the only way, for sure. And I think ultimately, I think a lot of people learn by doing. School, just to be clear, most of the time is mostly theory. And theory always works on paper, but in the real world does not work. So I think there's a little bit of, I would suggest people, whichever path you do, apprentice, go find someone winning and doing that thing and get as much info from them as possible. Take them out to coffee, take them out to lunch, ask them for an informational interview, tell them that you have a podcast and record it, whatever you have to do. Because I've done that many times. I told people I was a writer before I had a book, so they would let me come and talk to them. Then eventually I did do a book, but people will open up if you ask them for information. If you ask them for money or you ask them for something, it's a little bit different. But if you're like, I want to learn about your career and what you do and what you would tell yourself 20 years ago, like people are open to that because they want to pass on that knowledge. They know how difficult it is. They know the pitfalls, and we all need to have this realization. You cannot live enough life to make all the mistakes. I know good mushrooms from bad. Someone already did that. I'm not gonna go and forage and figure it out. I'll be then poison myself. It's not worth the time. So go find someone who knows it. And this is why hundreds of years ago you apprenticed. If you wanted to be a blacksmith, you sat under a person for years, and then eventually they passed away. You took it over because you really learned it. And
Mhm.
and so the practicality of doing it, you learn much faster. If you want to make a record as an artist, go make one. And it may be great, it may not. But by the time you make the fifth and the 10th, you'll learn every time how to do it faster, how to do it better. Who are the musicians that are dependable, who show up, who aren't flaky, who are the engineers you want to work with? Like you learn. And it's all trial and error. There is no way that you can just go in and know all the things from the beginning. So
Mhm.
you have to try a lot of things. And also, I learned from Tony Robbins, like when he was starting out to become a great speaker, he was like, people in my office spoke once a month. He was like, I'm going to speak 5 times a day. If you exponentially do a lot of that work, you can accelerate the process because you've done more and eclipse people who were just slow rolling it. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but the more check-ins you do, like if you're trying to lose weight, if I weigh myself every day, you'd be surprised by seeing that information 30 times a month versus 4 times a month versus 1 time a month versus none what you do. So you cannot manage what you don't measure. So you have to kind of know what success looks like and then create some metrics, at least like looking for like, okay, if I'm trying to do PR, did I get into these 5 outlets? Then you can track that. But if you just say something generally like I want to lose weight, that's like does nothing. You have to be like, I want to lose 50 pounds in 5 months. I'm gonna work with a dietitian. I'm gonna meet with them 3 times a month, 4 times a month. Like that's a plan. And so sometimes people have to get out of the ideation, dream, hope stage into like what is actually a massive action plan where they map
Mhm.
out exactly what the success looks like so they can track it.
Yes, yes. I love that. Tracking is everything. I'm 100% with you. So, Cliff, tell us if someone, again, let's just use your marketing. Love that. I love marketing so much because it's so broad. You can really bring marketing to a lot of different spheres. So, I also like for you to share your real experience, what can also be challenging with the job. I think if you like it, it's great, but I think it's important to also know what someone is getting into so they can already know, is it a challenge that I'm ready to face or this is too big for me to take on? Let me try something else.
Yeah, I mean, definitely several buckets. I will start with my main thing, which isn't directly 100% about the job, but I would say if you are going to do a second career, find something that you like to do. I don't think you have to love it the same, but absolutely do not do it for money alone and you hate it. Like, I just think that's such a burnout that you can't quantify what that does to your body, the stress and the cortisol. Like, you don't want to there's some things that this is not for you. Just make your peace with it. It's not for you. It's all good. You'll find the right path, the right career. Now, once you're in something that you like to do, I think the difficulty of most work, at least for marketing and digital things, it's a machine. It's always going, right? So there's like this hyper expectation to always be on, right?
Yeah.
So you can't always be on. Like you have to put a fork in it or be like, I have to table this or my body or my mind, this is diminishing returns, that type of thing. But there's different ways of structuring your day or productivity. I learned from David Allen. He had a book called Getting Things Done. He does the Eisenhower method. And there's 4 types of things. It's things that you do, things you delegate, things that you delay, and things you just delete. Like you're not going to do them. Now, I then learned from that process to reverse it. I want to delete stuff I know is never going to happen. I want to delay things that are not today. And then when I get to delegation, I want to delegate about 80% of non-me centric things. Like I don't have to do it so that when I get to the do, and I structure that, I have this eat that frog. Like if I can only get one thing done today, what's the most important me Cliff thing to get done, right? If I'm going to write a song and only I can write that song, that's a task I need to put at the top. But if it's something like I may not be able to cook my own food that day or clean my own house, if I can pay a maid or a chef or order from somewhere and that saves me time, Like when my maid comes to clean for 2 hours and I'm out doing something else and she's making less than I make an hour, I'm going to go do that thing that makes money or makes me happy. I'm not going to spend my time cleaning everything if I could be doing something else. And I'm not saying everyone can afford to do that, but I'm saying you look at the structure of your day and what you do, and you want to really hone in on, I may only get 2 or 3 things done, and are these the most important things? Is this going to get me as close to that goal? Do that. Because a lot of things you do, there's a word called boondoggle, but basically you have a lot of busy work or things that seem like you're getting there. And it's like you could spend your whole life climbing a ladder and then look up at the top and you're on the completely wrong building. See, that's why you have to know this is actually the goal, and I'm pointing there. And it has to be a goal for you. Do not try to build a goal around what somebody else wanted, because that's just regret at the end of your life. It has to be
Yeah.
a me-centric thing and very clear that you want it, because anything in life that's really worth having is going to be difficult, and you're going to want to quit. And so you have to really want it bad and really sacrifice to get it done.
Yes, I love this. So, Cliff, I'll start again. So, marketing is one of your career pivot. Now, you're also an author and you wrote a book, and I'd love for you to share. First, I want to know what this book is about. And after, I'd like for us to talk about what would you recommend to someone who's interested in writing a book. It's not just write a book and go publish. There are some steps that a beginner should probably be aware. And I want you to save them some hurdles, right? So give us like the good stuff. So someone wants to write a book, what do you recommend? But tell us first about your book, obviously. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I loved books my entire life. I read a lot of books, and I always, a lot of people, not just me, a lot of people, let's say 80% of the world, they want to write a book, or at some point think, I would love to write a book. It comes up quite often. Now, out of that 80%, about 1% of people actually follow through on doing it because it's difficult. Now, I was doing a nonfiction book, so I can't as much speak to fiction books. That's a whole other process. But in terms of nonfiction books, self-help books, that's what I was doing, kind of business, psychology, that kind of thing. I had imposter syndrome. So I started working on a book. I started interviewing some people, and then I was like, I'm not a writer, I'm a musician. I don't know about this. So I shelved that book for about 6 years. And then lo and behold, 2020, pandemic happened, and I couldn't get out to play shows anymore, and I was just working from home. And I'm the kind of person, like, I was like, okay, this seems like it's gonna last indefinitely. I don't know how long. And I was like, I need a project. I was like, I need something that's gonna keep me sane. I need some big project and I was like, what can I do where I really wouldn't need anybody? And I was like, oh, if I'm just writing, I can get that done. So they had a lot of free courses that you could take at the time. So I took one from Scribe Media, and a guy who ran it wrote a big New York Times bestselling book called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. And it was by a guy named Tucker Max. And they made a movie too. The movie wasn't great. But he taught a lot of people how to ghostwrite and to get their books done, and had this course. And so the very freeing thing for me as the first lesson in the course was, most people will not write because they're afraid people won't like it, or they're afraid they have nothing new to say. He was like, well, let me free you now. You don't. Nobody has anything new to say. We've heard it to death from everybody, but we have not heard it from you. And that's enough to get it done. Write it. Now, from there, they had a great thing in this process of outlining that was called a parking lot. So most people who have great ideas, they have more than one. Now, when you try to write a book, you might have 3 books in you. Now I have 3 books, but at the time, to get one done, you have to parking lot those other 2 ideas. You got to focus on just one main idea, because what happens is that you keep conflicting by trying to do too many ideas at once. And what happens is what he called a meatball sundae. He's like, I love meatballs and I love ice cream, but you don't want them at the same time. You're going to have to separate the 2. So the parking lot did that. And then from there, then you have a process of how you write and getting it done and getting the rough draft done. And then the process of wanting to publish and finding a publisher. So there's like baby steps to get there. But I think the best lesson, and I don't remember who told me this, but basically, you write all the way through. So like, if you try to go back as you're writing and edit, you will just never get it done, because you'll keep self-sabotaging yourself. Because this happened to me in music too. One time we had recorded something and we were doing it really quick. We did about 3 takes. And the guitarist who was working with me, I was like, we're going to use take 2. He was like, well, don't you think we can do it better? I said, absolutely. I was like, but we don't have a time machine and we can't go back to that take. We're going to do 2. Now, could I have done 6, 8 takes and done it better? Absolutely, but we didn't have time. And so what happens in the writing process, if you're like, okay, I did chapter one, let me go read it. Oh, let me change this, let me do that. Oh, I don't know, let me go ask someone. It's like give a mouse a cookie. You'll just get stuck in this rat race. So you write all the way to the end, done. Then you go back and start editing because then you'll see it different. But at least you have a full draft. But you don't do it in the middle of the draft because you will get stuck. Because of course you'll always get better. You evolve and change and get better every day. So of course chapter 2, then chapter 3, they all get a little bit better. And you'll see that. Even now I'm working on like a script and I was like, I don't really know about scripts. But as I'm getting to the last final pages, I was like, oh, this got some momentum. So like somewhere in there, I got better at it in the process where I was like, okay, this probably should have had momentum earlier. So when I go back, I'll do that. But there's multiple rounds of edits. If you're not a person who's like a tedious person, and I'm not, because I work with engineers and other stuff, I fall asleep at almost every editing because that's not exciting for me. Like the creation is exciting and then that just becomes grind. But so the editing process became really tough for the first book. So we figured out a faster second and third way to do that. But it's just, I think everyone, no matter what you do, writing or anything else, you should have one worthwhile project in life. Like everyone should lead a project because when I work with like a lot of sidemen, people who haven't led their project, it's very easy to know a person who's led for a person who's only followed. Because a lot of followers have great ideas, but there's reasons why leaders are like, oh, that's not now or not ever or no. And it makes you kind of feel like bad cop, but bringing something from the in your mind out of your mind where the world can see it is a whole process. And I just think everybody should have that because it could look exactly like you thought. It could be worse. It could be better. But either way, just the process of pulling it out of you. And also from a business perspective, that MVP, getting it out, even if it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, it's better to get the feedback because you could work on something forever and then be afraid to release it all together. That's what I call a hard drive project. Like it never gets off the hard drive or out. Or you're like trying to like edit it and edit it and edit it. Eventually you have to put a fork in it and be done. Typically, like a writer, your first book is not your opus. Usually you have to write a bunch of books before one takes off. Same with music. It took me many songs before I had one that had 1 million streams. It was not my first song. And so and I tell people that too in the songwriting process. I was like, you don't have to get all your ideas into one song. This is not the last thing you're going to write. Just make it good for today. And then you'll learn into the next one. I don't even tell people always go back and edit the thing you just did. I'm like, carry it forward into the next thing. Because sometimes you got to toss a couple of those first pancakes out before then they get good. And so there's no real right or wrong way. I've talked to so many artists about their process and everybody was different. But the main thing was sticking with it, really starting and finishing. Because a lot of people start, January, New Year's resolutions, we're all at the gym, let's do this. Only a week or so in, people have quit. Like most of the people have already stopped because you're trying to build this all or nothing. You're like, well, I messed up once, so you just never do it again. But that's not actually like the best practice. The best practice is like just get back on the wagon as soon as possible. Like, oh, you derailed, you ate something that was like off the menu or whatever. One meal's not gonna like make it or break it. Just get back on, get that healthy snack, continue. And the faster you do that, the better it will be.
Yeah. What's next for you? With all the different projects you have, you seem a very happy man. You seem like full of ideas, obviously very creative. What's next for you?
I mean, I could go so many different places. I could go so deep and be like, what's next is project. But if I was going to be absolutely honest, and I believe we're fast friends, so I want to do that. I have this book, and this book nobody's heard of, but it's called When I Relax, I Feel Guilty, right? And so the doers, we will do. We will do indefinitely. And so for me, a lot of the work is like, I've looked up and I don't ever take vacation. Like I'll go do something else somewhere, but it'll just be another form of work. So I'm really trying to encourage myself to be like, you know what? It's okay. It will be okay to take some time off. You've earned it. You deserve it. It's okay. Because even I grew up Christian, and then the creation story of God, who's all powerful, 6 days creates the world, rests on the seventh day. Now, God doesn't need the rest, but he goes back and he says, everything I did was good. You can't know that till you go back and reflect. You have to pause and reflect. You can't just do all the time because as human beings, we're as much doers as the being. It's who you become is the ultimate goal. So I want to make sure that I build in the proper rest to evaluate and reflect if something is good or not, because I might be doing 20 things and in this season of life need to narrow that down to the top 2 or 3 because you cannot spin plates the rest of your life. So as much as I would love to say, I have amazing projects coming out, I'm working on a new album and another book is coming, and it's all true. My radio show is ongoing. We're up past 265 episodes and it's syndicating on multiple stations. So that's all happening. But I've been for years so focused on talking about what I'm doing next, I want to also say who I'm being next. And part of that is removing the guilt about relaxation, because relaxation is a gift, but also just like health allowed me to hustle healthier, harder, you can hustle harder after taking those times to relax.
Cliff, you're speaking right through my soul. I really can relate to that so much. I will have to read the book for sure. Thank you. And where can people find you? Let us know about your book. You say that you're coaching people. So tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I can make it really simple. So on social media, all my socials are under the handle at Cliff Beach Music. My website is sidehustleandflow.net. We put up 5 blog articles a week for free. People can read. They can reach out to me there, cliff@sidehustleandflow.net. The book, Side Hustle and Flow, and book 2, which is Shape Up, and book 3, The Daily Grind, all where you can get books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, under Cliff Beach. All my music is on every streaming platform under Cliff Beach. And the radio show is every Saturday, 10 p.m., called Deeper Grooves, and it is on the SoCal Sound.
Wonderful. I love this so much. Cliff, thank you.
Thank you, Eve.
So
it was
much.
exciting to get to chat.
So exciting. And what I love the most, I love everything, but really you are an inspiration of, again, creation. And when you're done with your art, you're the proof that you can evolve in something as creative again, but also just your energy is so contagious. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just encourage you to always be true to you and do you. I tell everyone, no one on this planet can ever tell you how to be you, because only you know you. So do you and do you the best you can. You don't have to answer to anybody else but yourself.
On that note, I could not find a better way to end the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Recast and Rise. If today's story made a difference, share it with a fellow artist and creative friend. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow me on my socials for tips and tricks to navigate your career change. Until next time, I will see you in the next episode.